All right. There's still people trickling in, but welcome to the last Business Owners and Entrepreneurs Forum of 2020. My name is Jasmine Hoffman. I am the head of experience at Tech United. It's great to see you all. Great to see your names. If you want to pop up on video like David has, we are going to be wanting to have a roundtable discussion. So I hope you'll participate. With me today, I have two incredible men from our sponsors, NJEDA and Amplo Global. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves first, and we'll get into our topic very shortly. But like I just said, I want to make sure everyone feels super comfortable asking questions during the dialogue, saving them for later, ask them to one another, use the chat feature, raise your hands, whatever you want to do. This is meant to be an interactive session. So without any further, and it is being recorded, so we'll be able to share with you all afterwards as well. But without any further ado, I'm gonna turn it over to Andy and Clark to introduce themselves. We're gonna start with you, Clark, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So good to see everybody today remotely in this new world. Me personally, I've now been with the EDA for a little over 7 years. I lead the EDA's tech initiatives pretty much for the northern half of New Jersey, and I have a small staff underneath me. For northern half of New Jersey, I always do the line of demarcation as New Brunswick and above, which is easy because that's where I live. The EDA itself, if you're not familiar, it is a quasi-government entity. We're not actually part of the state of New Jersey, but we're the same as like the Port Authority or the Turnpike Authority. Our goal is to drive growth in the state's economy. Historically, we've done this through financial programs, so think loans, tax credits. But recently, we're evolving as an organization to be more of the leader for New Jersey in economic development efforts. An example of that is we were playing a monumental role in the build out of the offshore wind industry here in New Jersey. So, that's kind of it in a quick nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Andy, great to have you here as well. What's going on?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Quick introduction, Honorban, and go with Andy as well. So co-founder, CEO for Amplo Global. We are in the ecosystem for the last, I would say, 2.5 years, mainly empowering customers, organizations to run some simulations of their strategy and operations on our, I would say, AI-led, I don't want to use the word AI loosely, but data analytics AI-led platform we call Amplify 4.0. So very excited to be a part of this session and learn and share some experiences.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to get right into it. And I have prepared a couple of questions. But again, for those of you listening on the call, please feel free, jump in if you want to put them in the chat and I'll moderate them. If you want to ask them yourselves, which I would love, feel free to either raise your hand or unmute yourself or pop in when there's a moment to ask a question. But the overall topic of this forum is meant to talk about 2021 planning, forecasting, and business continuity. And that's obviously quite a broad topic. So I think the biggest thing is business continuity, right? Like it can be quite a challenge right now, especially in these still uncertain times. And so Clark and Andy, I'm wondering, what are each of your perspectives on a strong plan for business continuity? And how do you take into effect some of the uncertainty still planning for the next couple of years?
Sure, I'll kick it off. So I think I have a little different perspective probably than over Andy as an entrepreneur. I come probably more from a investor mindset when we're thinking of it. And if I'm skewing the comments towards more small business, I don't necessarily think a specific continuity plan. I have a buddy that's made a whole business out of doing disaster recovery continuity plans, but he targets the Fortune 500. So I think your typical common plans are perfectly applicable for a small business, and you should already have been planning into those, the expected roadblocks and hurdles. But now, given COVID world, it's just that much more important. So, your financial forecast, your pipeline, your product roadmap should all have a lot of, next level planning behind it for those one if scenarios. I can remember a couple of years ago, I was on an investor call and the entrepreneur afterwards came back and was like, why did the person ask me what I would do if Q1 sales forecast didn't happen at all. Well, we now know why he asked you that question because of what's happened this year. The other thing I'd probably add in, I work mainly with tech companies. So for the current world, tech systems and working remotely, your typical tech startup is already doing a lot of those things. So I don't think there was a lot of planning that additionally needs to go in it, but I would recommend to people to start thinking more about, your people and your team, right? Like if you're a tech startup and you have a rock star coder that frankly is working for below grade because you're a startup and they want to be a part of it, well, think in this current environment, maybe they were able to do that because their significant other works in the hospitality industry. That's not a thing then right now. They might have to, take an offer from Google and leave. Are you prepared for that? Do you know what that person does? Can someone else in the team pick it up? Are you going to have to quickly outsource it to somebody? All those things should be thought about ahead of time.
Absolutely. So, great insights, Clark, on being an entrepreneur and seeing the seeing the unprecedented time in 2020. I would say the way 2021 I would like to enter, I would bring a perspective here is um, existing employee, existing customers must to retain to take over 2021. So I repeat, existing employees, existing customers, or even contractors, right? So what we are doing is we are focusing on the basics now. Being a startup, we are always we are fighting for cash, right? So, but still, when we are committing to any kind of even sales cycle, we are very, very picky on this sales cycle will really bleed us or not, right? So, or in this sales cycle, we will be able to kind of leverage what we had 60% and 40% have to build new to win this project or program. So, all being said, our focus is if I have an existing customer renewal on our platform and a new sale, I'm going after the existing customer to keep them happy and keep them satisfied. Um, and also the existing employees or teams supporting that. So that's a perspective. We really have gone to the basics, right? It's like this whole year has made us so humble, right? We have now can't say that we're the most powerful creature on earth anymore, right? So some invisible folks are also more powerful than us. Uh, just, I would say, put my feet on the carpet, start 2021, take care of your existing bases very, very, very carefully. That would be my perspective.
And is that partially because of the cost per acquisition on both the employee side and the customer side? So that looking towards a continued, like a potentially uncertain year, you can sort of bank on those opportunities and potentially reduce the cost to generate a similar revenue or a similar hire or fill a position.
Fair articulation there, right? So I would say it would be a wrong info to share that we are not going after new logos or
Right.
new
Of
customers,
course.
right? But at the same time, we are very cognizant about, very much cognizant about, uh, is it, can this be postponed for January, February, March, and finish December in a way? And we have some renewals coming along in December on our platform, so we is there a way to say that no to a prospect? But no, I mean, yeah, I would say yes. First of all, yes, there is a cost pressure on
Right.
us being a startup, right? But at this, an investor, the angel, we're looking into a bit. We have a couple of angels, so we're looking into that, right? So, um, but we are also seeing that if you're a little patient on, let's pick on one of your 2 points, recruitment or new people coming in, or existing people maybe leaving, or we have to make a decision to furlough or let go, right? The whole workforce mindshare. We are very we are very careful of making the decision, because I will give an example. Very much happens in every organization. Very average performer, but knows the product pretty well. Uh, and when resumes are coming from outside, they're much more better resume than the person in the organization. I'm sharing this. But we are making a pretty mm, wise call of keeping that person and allowing the person to sell in 2020 with us, 2021 with us, and also don't lose that knowledge base. So a
Right.
lot of those attribution against the parameters that are going on to make a decision. So cost is definitely one of them.
Got it. Got it. And that kind of ties into even a little bit of what Clark was saying about you valuing employees and doing what you can for them in case they're getting different offers or in case their situations have changed. Um, Obviously, if this were a regular year, this conversation would probably have a bit of a different tint to it, right? We're factoring in a lot of uncertainty still. We're factoring in changes in the way that we're doing business, serving customers, generating revenue, all of that kind of stuff. I'm wondering if either of you, last year or even at the beginning of this year, worked on plans or were projecting opportunities for either this year or for the next couple of years, either doing a 1, 3, or 5-year plan, and where you focus your energy, if it was different or if it was the same. So Clark, from the investment side, and Andy, obviously, for anything within Amplo or that you saw within your peers.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm on the top of that planning. I'm definitely more of an input for the EDA into the planning certain. I would say my though experience is a little different than probably most, but not 100% because we're actually really growing in leaps and bounds. So our planning kind of underestimated, especially with COVID, around personnel and volume of business has just gone through the roof, which is probably not the base case for most folks. But again, especially just in the tech vertical, it depends. I had thrown that in for later comment, but if you work in digital health IT, things have been accelerated in that space. So you might actually have a big increase in demand from big pharma now if you're in like that clinical trial space, as opposed to other folks that are in industries or serve industries that have been much more affected by the pandemic and the economic consequences.
That's fair. That's fair. Andy, did you make any changes to your planning, or did you make any or notice any quick shifts as the pandemic hit to your plans for 2020?
Short answer, yes. We are seeing that. Well, we had a plan before the 2020 started. We had a plan. It did not go through that way, right? In fact, Clark was mentioning in the previous discussion that about forecasting by quarters, it was not matching, right? So all happened this year. So I would say that yes, we had a plan, did not match. Saw some leads coming into us because we are a digital platform and it's generally can be done without travel. The simulations of any efficiencies or strategies or operations can be modeled without traveling. We have seen a trend from, I would say, from the mid-market, where especially the last 2 calendar quarters, first 2 quarters was completely like all leads were gone. I mean, there was no, from Detroit area of the automotive suppliers and mid-market to CPG retail, I would say New York and West Coast, a little bit of pharma, energy, all were dead. But as we saw July, August, September, I did feel that maybe there's some budgets the leaders had which were expiring, or they wanted to do a little bit of more simulation for 2021. They did open up a little bit with us. And then it was not in our forecast at all that this organization will come and ask for work. It was a surprise, good surprise. But of course, there were surprises which we are absolutely not ready, which really hit us negatively. Like I would say, there were some sessions we we executed with a large pharma organization last December, and it was about to close maybe in February and March. And it completely pushed out to August. It didn't close in August. It's now, they're saying, in January. Yeah, it affected us going back to the investors and giving the review. So, but at the same time, I think, as I said previously, it's much more humbling experience this year. So even people who are questioning our existence, our growth, our forecast capability or ability, there is a empathy on those questions also, which kind of saved the face of us if you're not meeting the numbers. Make
Right.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of to follow up on that, Clark, you were talking about a massive amount of increases in inquiries and personnel and increases that the EDA had due to what's going on. And I'm curious to hear what trends you noticed in 2020. I know that
Yeah,
you guys were just massive champions of the startup and small business community, and you did a lot this year. So
yeah.
where were you seeing trends, whether it was in certain types of resources or ways that people were pivoting? I'm curious to hear from your kind of 30,000 degree perspective.
Sure. So, I kind of will give that ambiguous. It depends.
Yeah.
Really, until I think a lot more market data comes up before that, I can really say with certainty, are the activity for our programs correlated or mutually exclusive from what's really going on in the economy. So, just for a quick example, we have an angel investor tax credit program where investors in early stage companies can get a tax credit. We have never seen higher demand before. We got this in 2020, which we're in December, we've gotten 3 times more applications than we ever got before. Coming up on December, we had already gotten 800 applications into the program. And we had tapped out our annual pool in October. So, those are already rolling over. Does that mean more angel activity is taking place? Is it more market awareness? Is it now investors are more cognizant of getting some capital out of these existing programs? It's
Yeah.
just going to take some more time to really flesh out what the reasons behind that were. But what I can say is that the economic impact is just massive. And we are doing planning for actually my presentation after this. And until, you see it on paper, it's tough to get your hands around, right? So just, we ran an emergency grant program for small businesses. At most, they could get 10K out of this program. It was, small, less than 25 employees. This year, we've helped almost 50,000 businesses to the tune of almost $200 million and just at most $10,000 grants. So that's the scope of this thing. We launched a PPE portal for small businesses to get discounts on their PPE from a couple vendors. I think it's 2 weeks old. 5,500 businesses have leveraged the program so far. So it is a monumental economic situation, and it really affects almost every business in the state here. So it's large.
And looking at that data, even if it's initially, have either of you have any predictions for 2021?
I would say a lot of the issues are not going to go away. We'll have the stock market is not the economy. And even when COVID is passed, come summertime, what they're saying when we'll get herd immunity, vaccinations, all that type of stuff, it's still going to take time for the economy to play out in some sectors. It'll be years. The thing that is certainty is probably uncertainty. I made that analogy around, if you work with enterprise companies, obviously they're cutting spending, but doesn't necessarily mean they're cutting tech spending, right? Pharma has accelerated their spending in that clinical trial space. If you're in cybersecurity, I'm sure every enterprise, big and small, is now investigating into more cybersecurity type programs as we all work remote and data and utilize data more. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Okay. What about you, Andy?
Uh, I would say that the way we are seeing 2021, if I just want to make sure that I'm responding to the trend question, right? Just to make sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Trends for
Right.
2021 prediction. I guess really, if
Absolutely.
you're looking at 2021, it's trend. It's
Yeah,
predictions. But if you could
yeah.
look into your crystal ball, what does next year look like?
So I love the way Clark said that the only certain thing is uncertainty. It is something that I would say I will pick on the pharma belt where we have 3 or 4 customers right now. So what we are seeing there is it's all about, of course, data-led decision making. That's for sure, right? So the way the quick, let's say, the trials going on or the approvals going on, a lot of focus I'm seeing. If I just stay to the scope of technology and mindset to drive sales for Ampler Global, for the lack of better words, I would say heavy focus on data-led strategy, enabling patient experience for clinical trial, why the patient would not leave in the middle, the ontology, taxonomy analysis, really making sure that the clinical trial process goes well. Very, very focused on moving and cost cutting from batch manufacturing to continuous manufacturing, which is all data led, quick decision making. A lot of data driven energy is coming. And as Clark mentioned, is a lot of technology mindshare is opening up, right? It's like a real acceptance of technology in 2021 that yes, at the end of the day, there's a limit to what a process could do because now we're not in the same room. How do I make sure that we do some minimalistic whiteboarding, input that to a technology platform, have an expanded output, right? Minimal input, expanded output. So that's where we see a trend, as I said, data led. The second thing also I would mention is the trend that we are seeing is a lot of these innovations are opening up. Most of the organizations, we're working with an industrial organization in Florida. They make big HVACs, supplier to Home Depot, water heater systems and others. Now you may know the name. So these, and we are having a chat today morning with them. They're saying, listen, Andy, just do a small experiment with us. We would like to fail early, succeed early, and I don't want to commit for productionization of this right now, right? So do a small innovation, run a pilot. I have some budget left for 2020, right? Consume that, and then we make a decision on Q1, calendar year Q1 in 2021. That's also a trend we are seeing, which means that people are really embrace the challenge very optimistically, and innovations are knocking at the leaders' heads and saying that, hey, we need to have some kind of point innovations to see that if I do innovate quickly and fail and succeed quickly, I may be more resilient in my supply chain, in my value chain. I'm seeing that mindset, whomever we are talking to. Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, we have a question from Ed, and Ed, feel free to come back on video if you want to ask follow-up. I'm gonna ask this verbatim here. Oh, there he is. You can ask it. You do your thing.
Yeah, hi. It's been very interesting hearing your discussions and some very solid advice for everybody on here. So my question is, my business is consulting for consumer product manufacturers who are being faced with a very challenging retail environment. As we know, there's a lot of growth in e-commerce. That's all been good, but the majority of retail in the US is still done in retail brick and mortar stores. So what would you consider, and I know this is somewhat of an open-ended question, but what would you consider to be some of the key priorities for growth for a consumer product manufacturer in 21?
I can give a short first and then Clark can chime in. So the way we have one customer, they make energy bars. One customer, we are a very small company. We have one customer based out of California. They make energy bars. So I'll give an example, and it will be an example-led answer. So a few months back, they decided to really focus on the snack section of the bar, right? Not they make energy bars. Now you may know the name. It's of course Cliff Bar. So Cliff makes energy bars, but they want to get in the snack section. Now, when they want to enter in the snack section, forget about this year, they're seeing a lot of competition, right? They're seeing Nature Valley and others just in the snack bar section, right? So we were discussing, they do some simulation on our platform that, okay, if I have to do an NPI, new product launch, how I would do this. One of the things that we are seeing that the empathy, we call empathy mapping, right, in our platform, when they're empathizing on certain areas of growth model of NPI, new product introduction, one of the things they're really considering, that same theme I started with, if this is working, should I really change? And how do I know it's working? So your question is, consumer product manufacturers are facing challenging, what would be the key priorities, right? So A, if something is working in some zip code, don't change it, right? Second, be aware of the consumer behavior, right? Which is, I know it's a cliche, but you have to be more analytics driven. Now, not ever, and now than ever, right? You have to be analytics driven. So really understand that, okay, in this time, in this Thanksgiving, we thought we will do this, we could not, so how the Christmas will work out, because most of the people will stay home. How many people will run? How many people will go to the gym to consume an energy bar? Maybe they will do more snack bar, right? So that consumer behavior understanding is very critical. Third is extremely important to really look into the price and the cost. For example, you will see a lot of shift from like outside the country manufacturing, okay, coming and sitting on suburbs like in Fresno, Bakersfield, that area for manufacturing. Now you will see that trend coming up. Of course, there are a lot of organizations that are already there, but with this organization, we're seeing that, okay, they will move the manufacturing from maybe the Mexico-US border in El Paso to Fresno, just because the FDA approval will be faster, right? Or from Canada, they will move it to in-house. So you will see a trend on that. Will the cost may go up? That's one of the challenge, cost versus bringing it in-house. So we are seeing some trends. So pricing, costing will be another thing to look into. So priority for growth, right? And then I will stop here. Priority for growth would be what I'm seeing with this organization. Definitely be bold. And when I say bold, do something which is you would not do in a time of cost mindshare. Like this organization is investing on biofuels and sustainability program, right? I mean, when a mid-market like them trying to survive on an energy, because they're gym customers like LA Fitness or others, their orders are completely cut because LA Fitness is closed. So their vending machine doesn't be filled up with Cliff Bars, right? So they're losing those B2B sales. But now, while they're losing the B2B sales, they also want to be bold. They want to say that the way I can do a better job for a branding for Cliff Bar is if I go sustainable manufacturing, biofuel strategy. That's a huge area for focus for consumer goods. So we are seeing that trend. We're in the field, and I will just stop there. I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but I will just stop there.
You had some great advice there. I took a lot of notes. And I like the way you think, which is, you have an open mind, you're exploring different options, you tied in your own client experience. Thank you.
I would
Yeah.
assume emerging channels as part of it too, right? Like if you're no longer selling it to gyms, maybe you make a partnership with a nature box and all of a sudden you're selling them bulk orders that are going to individual homes, right? Like I bet that's a little bit of part of it is
The channel
acknowledging
strategy,
the change
the channel
and getting ahead
strategy.
of it.
Excellent point. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Ed. I don't work as much with manufacturing or consumer products, but in a previous life, I was a manufacturing engineer for a consumer products company. So Andy, I think, hit on a lot of really good things. You definitely are going to have to really hone in on the focus of what you're looking at, and things have changed. Speaking with a lot of my friends that are still in manufacturing, honestly, a little of them some of them are a little more prepared because they were affected by the tariffs that, that were before. In the last 2 years, there was a lot of tariffs. So, onshoring is definitely a thing. Places where I think traditional manufacturers can get a new competitive advantage. Yeah. So the transition to e-commerce from retail has accelerated, but retail's not going to go away, brick and mortar, but there is none right now. So like that's a huge drop off. One area that I think that folks could gain a leg up, and if they're looking to spend, is around, like ops resource planning, and mainly in supply chain. So that's what the real crunch has been, with a lot of consumer goods, like even in your personal life for the holiday spending, right? Like if you have a kid that wants a PS5, I fall in that category. Like you can't get one right now. And that across the board, like PPE, consumer goods. Have you tried to get paper towels recently? There's just constraints, and most of them, they do tie to manufacturing, but they fall into the supply chain planning of resources coming in, going out. And did you ever think we'd be at the time where FedEx and UPS and the post office were saying, I know you're trying to deliver stuff in a month, we're telling you it's not going to happen. So I think if there's ways for a manufacturer to strengthen relationships or implement technology that can benefit the supply chain aspect, I hate to say it, but like getting around maybe middlemen and getting into Amazon's warehouse sooner, those are places for that manufacturer as opposed to a distributor to gain market share and survive.
Is it fair to also encourage leveraging the Port of Newark? Like if we're talking about New Jersey and you're talking about kind of parts of the supply chain and shipping, if you can leverage that, isn't it like one of the largest ports on the East Coast, or the largest?
Yeah, it's honestly, last time I was talking with the person on the port side, it was the second or third largest port in the country. A little side note, I had gone to the Budweiser brewery in Newark. One of their main businesses actually is their warehousing with the port. If you get a beer, an imported beer, it's like a 75-80% chance that it came through Port of Newark and was stored at Budweiser's distribution center right there in Newark. Yeah, if you are importing, there's probably ways to get connected with expediters and that type of thing to get your materials in sooner. But if I was shooting from the hip, I think probably more of the challenge is getting your products to the right market sooner, not necessarily getting raw materials in, which I think is a lot of what folks would be, smaller businesses, especially smaller manufacturers, would be using for the port system. For
Very fair.
Thank you for your insights. Very helpful. And I don't want to dominate the question in Q&A, but my clients are both uniquely different, have very different strengths, weaknesses. Certainly the comment, be bold, because they're both doing well. But I think they're a little bit cautious because I mentioned before about the challenging environment. But there's opportunities out there that they can be attacking. So I'm going to try to get them to be a little bit more assertive and aggressive in the market. So I appreciate those comments, as well as the supply chain comments, which are tremendous.
Sounds good. Thank you guys. And encourage everyone to keep chiming in questions in the chat or via video, whatever works. And this actually ties in pretty well to the next question I'd wanted to ask, which is leaning in a little bit more to leveraging technology to plan for 2021. And Andy, that comes a little bit more to the power of your platform, the power of data analytics, machine learning, AI, all of the new emerging technology that's allowing us to better understand and better predict with using real actionable data. So in a long-winded way, Andy, I'm kind of asking you to talk to us a little bit more about how people are using data and analytics to plan for 2021 and what things you're seeing people really lean on as they look to prepare for the next year or next 3 years, whatever it might be.
Absolutely. So first of all, if you really see the three streams which we see it from our lenses, right? You don't have to see it the way we see it. It's like strategy. There is a lot of leadership, intuition going on, transformation, leadership, intuition, and data going on. A lot of like transformation programs already have data experience, I call it. And then operation. You're operationalizing the transformation, the strategy, and the transformation, right? So we, as an organization, we sit in the front. Like we do strategy simulations, unlike transformation or operations. So we are at a crux of decision making. We are one of the first movers who has a platform like trying to push for data led when it's generally intuition led, right? In the strategy space, it's generally intuition led. That's where a leader becomes a leader. What we are seeing in that space is a lot of these small technology organizations like us coming in and chipping in, trying to advise or augment the leadership. And that's where you will see a lot of trend. In fact, I published a blog on Friday on AI-led management engineers. We generally call management consultants, right? But the trend that we are seeing that a management consultant from McKinsey or BCG or Bain or any big consulting firms, right? They are becoming management engineers, which means a consultant augmented by data-led platforms is the new normal, which is helping the end customer to be more factual to make decisions. And this is all possible. Product, services, end customer, all possible because of the speed of technology that is changing. Now, during this pandemic or post-pandemic, hopefully it's post very soon as we all get vaccinated, there are a few things, and I will emulate what Clark mentioned. There will be few things which will never be back to the normal we think now normal. The new normal will be normal, right? And one of the new normals will be that I think none of the most 98% of the leaders, let's say 97% of the leaders as a percentile interval there, they will not make a decision without a simulation or a model from their technology team or their corporate strategy team. I'm very confident. That's the trend. That now from any decision point, we have so much data in the ecosystem, be it pharma, be it CPG, be it energy, be it industrial. We have so much data that we have gathered this year: customer, channel, supply chain, distribution, manufacturing, supplier. And I say this in a very passionate way, and I believe in this too, is when you are in abyss at the downward hill, it can only go better. So because you know your weaknesses so well that you can only do better after that. And I'm not saying in a weak or strong way. I'm saying that leaders now believe that technology, data-driven, bringing the organization together, empathy, customer prioritization, employee retainment is so important now. All this, which I'm seeing a trend, is a VP of HR. I teach an MBA class in Rutgers. Somebody asked me. She works for Johnson & Johnson. She asked me that, do you think that even in the HR field, there will be some trends where we have to make some decisions based on models and trends? Because we generally have an interview cycle. We fill up in Workday, which is a software solution, or Talio, and we make some decisions very linearly. non-linearity is the way to move forward. Non-linearity, which means you make a decision, some other feeds coming in, you come back, make another round of decision. Of course, there's a deadline. Of course, you have to meet a deadline to make that decision, but the non-linearity and the continuous improvement is really helping to manage the risk better. And that risk management is the best response to risk management and non-linearity and simulation is technology, because we have data. Now, the last thing I will say, is the data good? Can I believe in the data, right? That's the crux. As leaders, where humans cannot be replaced is here, right? A leader has to make a call that, okay, here is my method to the madness. In a chaos, I will see this many data trends, and the seventh one I will pick up. That's best for my customer. That's best for my company. That's where technology cannot replace a human being, right? Other than that, once you make that decision, it will be data-led. And that's where I would say technology will be in every section: strategy, transformation, operation. It will be all over the place in Journey 1. Sorry for a long answer here, but hopefully I made some sense.
Eddie, I think it is a big, the length is equal to how important it is. Analytics are involved in every aspect of business. You have to use them smartly. Here's an engineering term for you: garbage in equals garbage out, right? So you have to use it smartly. But even think of, industries you'd never expect. Like, I'm a big baseball fan. Well, success on the field, there is a direct correlation to the size of a team's analytics department. You can literally tie how big their department is, how much they utilize analytics to success on the field. And I don't think it's a big jump to say that even in the smallest organizations, you can implement, data analytic software, which is probably less expensive that you would expect, that can really have impact.
Yep. Absolutely. Can't agree more.
You're definitely right. Definitely fair. Everyone loved Moneyball. Yeah, there he is, Greg, in the comments. Couldn't wait to chime in too. Along with using data and having data analytics, what are the most, and we've talked about this a little bit, in leadership as you're planning, whether it's for the next 5 years, really high level, for the next couple months, super in depth. What is the one key exercise that you think leadership should do as they're putting together strategically a plan for the future?
It's funny. My recommendation on that one hasn't really changed from pre to post pandemic, but I'd say it's even more important. Like, I'm not to tell people like, switch over your inventory from FIFO to LIFO. Like, that's an accountant's question. I always say transparent and reasonableness in your projections, right? Always, especially with our portfolio companies, they're overly aggressive, which I don't really care necessarily if you are very aggressive, but you should be transparent in that. Here are my sales targets. Is this the base case, or is this the super moonshot that you're presenting to me? You should be very transparent with that, especially to your directors and investors. And then I would flip in the current environment. I'm not in the Valley. I'm on the East Coast. I love entrepreneurs being positive, and I just always recommend, especially now, the way that you spin things, make sure that they're not being kind of misleading. So I had a recent conversation with another investor that I know, and a company we both are familiar with. They had sent an outreach to him, and it was saying how, they've done a great job improving margins, and they finally have, for the first time, positive cash flow. If that's because they laid off 80% of their staff and cut all of their office space, not something that you should probably be stressing as a positive. So just be careful in those types of environments of how you're presenting data, how you're forecasting, and more along the lines of just being transparent of where it's coming from and why you're expecting this and why you're going after maybe this market. those types of things.
Yep. So if I pick what Cloud just mentioned, I will say, in addition to that, very well articulated, Cloud. So the way I will make an addition that which I am seeing as a small business, I will say that logically, you don't have to be emotionally attached to it. Logically retain your existing customers. My theme that I started with, I will keep the theme that the belief that you will build during this phase of Q1, Q2 next year, it will be so much uncertain as there's as an administration come in. I'm going to say new, for the lack of better words, new administration come in. So whatever happens, right, you will see a lot of change there. Then uncertainty on the drugs, like vaccines, how they will work or not, changes in the workforce. Who knows? Maybe a core manufacturer will lift up the 6 feet social distancing because for the last 2 weeks, there has been no COVID incident in that organization in March 2021, right? So suddenly they'll start taking new orders. So I would say that what I am focusing on, there is a little bit of experience, is to retain the existing customers. I'm trying to make sure that the team is in place. Will I be successful 100%? Of course not. Has my hand slapped this year multiple times with wrong decisions? Of course, yes. But I would say that where my heart and head, they are aligned as I finish the year, calendar year, is I'm going to retain my existing customer logically. That's where, and I want to forecast them also, because my plan is to land and expand. If I do a small work, the license or platform, I would like to take the platform. Somebody is doing some simulations in our platform on sustainability. I will go to a supply chain leader in that same organization, say, hey, Miss X or Mr. Y has done this simulation on our platform. Can you want to do this, the supply chain simulation, and make some better decisions this year? So my thought process is working on existing customers. So I would advise that. But of course, if your business is really growing, then you can go for new customers. But for us, the number of customers we have, we see forecasting happening for now January to March right now. We have several meetings, in fact, last week for that. We see that it's the best way to go to logically retain existing customers, expand in the existing customers, and chew maybe 2 or 3 similar deals where your existing customer story base makes you successful in that sales cycle. And that's how you have to forecast. If something, I am not planning to go in any new vertical in the next 2 quarters, right? So we have pharma, industrial, CPG, retail. We will focus on that. We are opportunistic on energy a bit. We have a couple of things going on in Houston as a prospect. Fintech, I don't know if they will do some simulation on our platform. Yeah, so we are very focused on 3 verticals. That's where our plan is. Am I not optimistic there as an entrepreneur, just to score in front of Clark? I am optimistic, right? Would I take an opportunity in February 2021 if somebody calls from a fintech industry to do some simulation on our platform? Of course, yes. But we are not forecasting that.
But that's what you plan for. You hope to forecast and exceed expectations with whatever might come through, but to be reasonable with what you hope to achieve.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, I know we've got a couple minutes left. I'm gonna throw in a final question, which is to say, for any businesses that started this year, and there are actually quite a few startups that were founded in 2020 and came out of the pandemic. For those businesses that do not have existing customers and who are just starting out, perhaps are getting angel investment or hiring for the very first time, how do they look to 2021? And didn't prep either of you for that.
I will say this,
a surprise
right?
bonus question.
I will say this, right? keep a balance between conviction and ego. Believe in it. And if you believe in it, it is bound to happen. Just don't give up. And I scored in front of Clark.
Obviously, don't give up. In times like this, and certainly when things are going well, lots of businesses do come out of those types of times.
Yeah.
And it's just as difficult as it is any other time. I would say be strong in your convictions, and know where you're doing and where you want to go and why you're doing it. It can be as simple as I looked on Google and this is I can see this is a need, and I can justify it, right? Like that's better than when people are saying, why are you doing this, just because, oh, it's my problem, like that's not an answer. I'm passionate about it. Passion only takes you so far. Go for it, but have the reasons behind it spelled out. And good luck. Everybody gets good luck.
Yeah.
And like Nelly said it quite well, it can only get better, right? Let's hope so.
Absolutely.
Always.
Well, I want to thank you all for joining us today. If you have any lingering questions, right now is the time to ask them. But I'm going to turn it over to Andy and Clark to just share a final parting words before we end our meeting for today.
Yeah, I would just add the website for the EDA is very easy. It's njeda.com. My name, email, probably even my phone's on there. Feel free to reach out, or reach out just to the general lines if you have questions.
Or to me.
Or to Jasmine. If you're perusing on the website and there's something of interest, reach out. We'll do our best to get back to you in a very, very timely fashion, or at least point you in the right direction.
I will say likewise. Very similar message from our side too. Even it's not a business relationship, if you would like to pick our brain on how did we survive this year, which we had a tough time in August, September. How did we pull through that? I would love to share those experiences. And big into ecosystem build, big into marketplace build, big into collaboration. So yeah, reach out to us, and of course through Jasmine, and would love to answer any questions. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for sharing some of your wisdom with us on this cold December day. Thank you everyone tuning in to take a little bit of your time to hear these guys talk a little bit about their perspective. I certainly learned a lot, and I hope that you all did too. Like I said, everyone I think on the call has my email from the confirmations and from all the emails Tech United sends. So if you need anything, you just reach out to me and I'll see what I can do about it, including making introductions as well. But I'm going to give everyone back a couple extra minutes of their day, and we will talk to you all soon.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.